Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and today I would like to look at the return of Obra Dinn. I haven't been playing a lot of games lately, but this is one that I've been following for a very long time. It's developed by Lucas Pope pretty much single-handedly. Lucas Pope, of course, made it cool to be an Eastern European passport control officer in Papers, Please. This one brings you the joys of 1-bit graphics from the mid-80s and combines it with all the action of being an insurance adjuster with the ability to, well, look back in time at the moment of doom. Yeah, this graphics look is really kind of a big part of its aesthetics. It doesn't really change the gameplay. If you like other styles, you can change the colors if you've got a particular thing that you want to look at, but I'm going to stick like this. Let's actually just begin a game. I've actually gone through this a few times because there is a weird issue with my capture system that keeps killing the video, so I switched it over to screen space capture hoping that it gets this. So yeah, the Obra Dinn is a ship which has been missing for a while, and it has now returned to port. And you, as an inspector, have been sent out to try and figure out what really happened.
Company man woke me up. Said you'd need ferry to the Obra Dinn. Not many eager for that job. Seems a bit late if you ask.
I didn't.
What's in the box?
I don't know. I'll hoist it up in a few minutes.
Hey! How?
Carefully.
And with that, we arrive inside the game. And now you can immediately see that 1-bit dithered graphics look isn't just for a static title screen. The entire 3D world is rendered that way, and there are a ton. Well, he's done a bunch of dev blogs explaining how he arrived at this final version. There was a lot to tackle, a lot of problems regarding the stippling, the dithering, like flickering around and giving people headaches. So he tried various ideas, mapping things onto spheres, various noise models, stretching the screen, moving the pixels around. And yeah, this is what we finally got up to. At this point in my video, I realised that you as viewers are probably far more interested in the technical side of this than the average viewer for the average gaming video. So what happens is internally the game renders everything in the scene using 8-bit grayscale, and then it uses a dither pattern, and the dither pattern is essentially a mapping of whether the pixels should be on or off depending upon the grayscale value. Now, because there's different kind of objects with different detail levels, there's actually 2 dither patterns that use. There's one is a simple 8-bit Bayer mask that's very tight and produces high details. The other is a broad blue noise, which allows, the patterns, the regularity to be broken up. So depending upon the object, different dither patterns are used, and you can see that it works pretty well. The problems start when things start moving, and suddenly objects that were supposed to be well defined turn it into a mass of pixels flicking on and off and looking really not very nice on the eye. Scaling this up to full screen with an entire scene rendered here really, does illustrate how messy the problem can be. And, I'm sure at this point Lucas was starting to think that maybe he should just abandon this whole 1-bit concept. He tried a few different ideas that were non-starters. For example, instead of mapping the dithers to the screen, he decided to try mapping the dither to the textures. I think he says in his blog that he didn't totally expect it to work, and it wasn't a total loss because the objects became far more stable and there was much less pixel swimming. A second experiment was to use motion warping, so that if the camera moved, it would just copy the bits that it had already rendered to try and keep the pixels in the same place. One of the problems with this was that towards the edge of the screen, the pixels would end up warped because the field of view per pixels actually changes across your average screen because of the transformation that's used. That's why spherical objects appear elliptical towards the edge of the screen. So instead of trying to accurately map every location in the screen to where the camera should be looking, instead he just used a fixed transformation, which actually made things a whole lot easier. So while the geometry is no longer perfect, it does look a lot better and has less of that warping visible at the edges.
And if I understand his blog post, this technique does actually get used in the final game. The other technique which apparently made it into the final game was mapping the dither maps around the player and holding them fixed orientation in space. Now this is an example of a cube, but it actually produced much better results than I expected right away. However, a cube is not perfect because it has corners. But it worked well enough that he figured out how to map the pixels onto a sphere in relatively close approximation, and this is what worked. The problem here is the pixels on the sphere are roughly the same size as the pixels on the screen, so you ended up getting moire patterns. And the solution used to eliminate these is to render the whole thing at twice the resolution and then scale the thing down. Super sampling saves the day. So you can put these two side by side just to get an idea of how much difference this made. Notice the one on the right has a lot less of this stippling, a lot less of this pixel swimming, making the game a whole lot easier on the eyes. This is of course documented in his dev blog, and it's a whole lot better to go and read that and get the real details on what he went through. And now back to the Obra Dinn. When we last left our hero, he had discovered a dead body in an abandoned ship.
So yeah, the ship is essentially abandoned, but we do find this corpse. The doors, there are doors, they are locked. So how are we supposed to investigate? Well, maybe there's something up here. Again, look at the ship here. The rigging and everything was, well, I mean, it's been copied from a design typical of the era. Notice that they have bound this mast with some rope here. Clearly, that is that rope is the 17th or 18th century version of duct tape, right? 19th century? Was it 18th? Well, never mind. I don't even remember. But this person does want me to come down, so I shall do it. Hello. Like in addition to the shading.
It's too heavy. Take it yourself or open it here.
In addition to the shading, the surfaces are obviously stippled. You've got also the corners all set up. Here we go. We get a book. Now the book in the original GDC demo, you had to go and find it on the ship, but now it decided for gameplay reasons it's much easier to give you the book at the start. This is where you're going to keep track of all the clues. It's where you're going to report your analysis. There's a preface that tells you that's what you're supposed to do, and then you have an index that lets you take a look at the maps, show you where things happened. There's a map off the ship so you can learn what a lazarette is and what the Orlop deck is. You got the crew manifest telling you everyone that's supposed to be on the ship and where they came from, and some pictures. Again, great dev blogs that he wrote on how this picture was arrived at, because what he did after creating all the characters in the game, he posed them all in 3D for this picture, took the picture, and then redrew it based on that picture, all these three pictures, to get this kind of final version. And that's what ended up getting then converted into the game. So yeah, if we just flick through this, we can get to the glossary towards the back. You can actually find out what a top man is, a higher rated seaman specializing in work above the deck in the sails and rigging. And this is the book. The other the other item that they give you, which is core to the plot, Memento Mortem, remember death. This is a watch. I mean, it could be anything, but it looks like a watch, which lets you take a look at the moment of death. And that's good, because of course everybody on the ship is dead, nobody's going to be talking to you, but maybe you can get some clues from their final moments. Again, look at the sails, look at the state they're in, because things are going to change over time. So we're going to check out this guy, so he's the only person that we can see right now. And we get a little bit of your chat.
Captain! Open the door! Kick it in. Ah! Lest we break it down and take more than those shells!
You bastards may take exactly what I give you!
Bang! Moment of death. This poor guy getting shot and by this guy. So who are these people, right? Well, we presume this guy was in the captain's room, and if we look at the picture, we find that he is in there looking... Well, he's got a pretty cool hat, so I'm presuming he's the captain. This guy has a hat, but it's not as cool as the captain's hat. This guy has exactly the same hat he's wearing right now, but he does have a gun. So yeah, we're replicating these exact moments. There's also somebody up here we can check out. In fact, I can move through him, and he has a knife in his mouth, because he's probably pretty badass. Note here that we actually have sails that are still here. As we flip back to the time that we joined this, the sails will be returned to their disintegrated state. All the music in the game, incidentally, was composed by Lucas Pope as well, so not only did he program this, come up with a bunch of revolutionary graphics techniques to make it render correctly, he also did the music. This is someone, you can see why I like his games. He really just approaches them as artistic endeavors. So who is this person? This is what we're going to try and solve. Who is this and how did they die? Well, we don't know who they are, but we do know that they were shot by a gun, and we can guess that it was by the captain, since that's who they were talking to. So now that we've unlocked this secret, we can return to our regular time by walking through the doorway. And now we're through the doorway, we are back on deck. Everything is back to the way it was. That sail is now in tatters one more time. But importantly, this door now lets us step through into the captain's bedroom. There are two corpses here. Is one of these perhaps the captain? Let's find out. Now, not all of the cutscenes involve chat. They don't involve any voiceover. Some of these are just like people making fighting sounds with sound effects, such as that whoosh as this flew around and smacks this individual into the head. That was the guy with the knife in his mouth a minute ago, and he's now been beaten up around the head by the captain. So we can go straight into this to find him. He's there, right? That's the dude. But we're not going to be able to figure it out just yet. This door is open now, so we can walk in here. Aha! This is another person. And there she is in one of the shots there. One of the shots. It's almost like I'm talking about some fantasy world where you can just shoot pictures. No, this is from a time when you had to actually draw them by hand. So I should look for this guy, actually. Where is it? Here, he is here, right? Who is this guy? I have an idea. He's the captain. It's no longer blurred, which means we can deduce their identity. There were 60 on the ship. You'll have to make assumptions, and you will figure things out. So I'm going to say that this guy is Robert Witterell, the captain. But we don't know how he died just yet. Here we go, inside the captain's quarters. Who is this? How did they die? They were clubbed by the captain. Oh, I said the captain. There we go. So we know how two people died. We still don't know who they were yet. So now that scene has unlocked the door to the captain's cabin, we can go in and actually see that, yes, not only is she dead, but she is faded away. But there's a corpse here that wasn't there earlier, so let's take a look at this one. Could this be the captain? He wasn't in the previous scene, and he was the only person left standing.
Your brother, my friend. I shot him dead.
And so there you have some clues. Abigail's brother was shot by the captain.
I'll be with you soon, my love.
So now we need to figure out who Abigail's brother was, right?
Please forgive me.
Yes,
for everything.
For speaking slowly and dramatically. Man, that sucks. You were the only person left on the ship and you decided that you'd rather be dead. Okay, so let's take a look. Yep, that's him. And there's Abigail again. At this point, I kind of want to get in quick and fix everyone's fates, but there's nothing much I can do here as far as I can tell. Okay, so now inside the captain's quarters, we have this corpse. We're pretty sure this is the captain. So we can finally fill in his fate to say that he committed suicide with a gun. This may or may not be correct. Fates are validated. Correctly identify at least 3 dead people, right? Now, the other thing that was said was, Abigail, I shot your brother. So who the heck is Abigail? Well, I actually got to do that. We got to find out who that is. But let's run through this gate and get back to the rest of the game. Back to the real world. Back to the now. Open the book. Okay. Oh, that's good. Didn't know that. So what I'm looking for is this unknown soul was clubbed. Ah, here we go. This unknown soul was shot, but we don't know who could it be. Well, we can actually take a look at some clues here. So if we scroll down, we find Abigail Hoscott Witterell. Well, Witterell is the surname of the captain, you'll notice, and Hoscott is the surname of the first mate, so it's reasonable to surmise that William Hoscott is the person that was shot. So that's 2 names that we figured out. So who else can we check? Well, we can check out this fine lady to see what happened to her. And this is where it gets to be more than just a mutiny on the ship. Where is the captain? Come here! Oh man! She got crushed by rigging in a crazy storm! That is so uncool. Ah, poor lady. She was having such a good trip. But not only was she crushed by rigging, she was crushed by rigging being slung around by a kraken. Or at least I presume that's what's on the other end of that. There's people getting lifted up and swung around. Who's that guy? Who are these people? Yep, there's a lot of stuff going on in this scene here. Note the waves running over the side of the ship here. Is this guy pulling someone to safety? Oh, no. He's pulling the remains of somebody to safety. Some tattooed warrior there. Okay, the Doom. This is chapter 7 where we get to meet the Doom. But we're still trying to solve chapter 10. Inside the captain's quarters. Who is this? How did they die? Well, we have a pretty good idea that she's Abigail Hoscott Witterell, right? There we go. And she was crushed by rigging, wielded by a kraken. Well done. 3 fates correct. So no one on the right track here. So we got that guy. So you see it comes into the book. It's printed now. There's 2 other corpses in there we haven't investigated, but we gotta go know their names and how they die. Filling in how they die is pretty easy when you jump to the moment of their death. Filling out who they were, figuring out who they were, that's a little harder. Now, remember that corpse that I mentioned? Where is it? The corpse was here. So if I activate this watch, it sends out a pulse of light, and the only things remaining are the corpses which are in this scene. So I can activate the watch again, and it will remember where that corpse was at that time, and I can send my little, I don't know, light-seeking, corpse-seeking, spirit-seeking smoke cloud thing, and it will travel to the location, and once there, I can actually use the watch on it again to find out a little more. So I'm going to say, I'm not going to go far into this game because it's hugely full of spoilers if I play it. I mean, this is really something you have to play for yourself. Also, the graphics really look terrible on YouTube. Like, YouTube's uses like H.264 and WebM, and those are not really designed for such high contrast dithered content. There he is there, getting properly torn apart, so we'll add that to his document. Who are you? What are you doing? So yeah, this is the return of the Obra Dinn. Return of Obra Dinn. It's on Steam. You can actually still download the GDC demo. The graphics in the GDC demo are not nearly as refined as these ones have finally reached, and I'm really impressed by how much work has gone into this. He made a comment about how he'd spent basically 100+ hours trying to make something invisible so no one would see it, right? So it's the opposite. People work very hard to make things that are super visible, whereas a lot of this was adjusting the graphics so that the flickering artifacts wouldn't be visible. And hold on for one more second. All I'm hearing is, yeah, there we go. Bang. That's him exploding up there. One other thing I guess worth mentioning if you read his various dev blogs is that he developed his own collision detection system for walking around in 3D, because the stock version was just not very good. He would fall through the deck randomly, and it got even worse whenever they were dealing with heavily inclined decks. Sometimes they would say get to a wall here, and now because of the slope they would be able to climb up this wall, and that would cause all sorts of problems. So yeah, I'm extremely happy with this. It's a perfect example of, game as art. Obviously they could go for more realistic graphics, but this is what the artist chose to render their world in. It's $20 on Steam. It's out today, so check it out if it looks like your kind of thing. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.